The shuttle landed with a soft hiss, and Marcus Cole stepped onto alien soil for the first time in his life. The air tasted strange, like metal and flowers mixed together. The sky above was purple instead of blue, and two small suns hung low on the horizon. He was a long way from Earth. The Galactic Integration Academy rose before him like a mountain made of glass and stone. Thousands of beings from hundreds of worlds came here to train, to learn, and to prove themselves. Marcus was the first human to ever walk through its gates. Earth had only been discovered 3 years ago, and the galaxy still did not know what to make of his species. A tall creature with silver skin and 4 arms approached him. Its eyes were completely black, like pools of oil. "You are the human representative?" it asked. Its voice sounded like wind through pipes. "That's me," Marcus said. He tried to smile in a friendly way. "Marcus Cole, nice to meet you." The creature looked at him for a long moment. Its expression was hard to read. "I am Administrator Vexen. I will process your arrival. Please follow me." As they walked through the Academy's main hall, Marcus noticed that everyone was staring at him. Creatures of all shapes and sizes stopped their conversations to watch him pass. Some were giants, 3 meters tall with skin like rock. Others were small and quick, with too many legs and eyes that glowed in the dim light. A few looked almost human, but their proportions were wrong in ways that made his brain uncomfortable. He heard whispers in languages his translator could not fully process. But a few words came through clearly. Fragile, short-lived, mortal. Administrator. Vexen led him to a small office and gestured for him to sit. The chair was too large for his body, designed for something much bigger. Marcus sat anyway, his feet dangling slightly above the floor. "Your species has been classified as Tier 9, Vexen said, reading from a holographic display. "This is the lowest classification for sentient beings. Your average lifespan is approximately 80 standard years. You lack natural weapons, armor, or regenerative abilities. Your home world is classified as a Category 3 death world due to its high gravity, toxic atmosphere, and dangerous wildlife. But this has not resulted in any notable physical advantages for your species." Marcus listened quietly. He had heard all of this before. Humanity was new to the galactic stage, and first impressions had not been kind. "You will be assigned to the academic tracks," Vexen continued. "Strategy, diplomacy, technical studies. The physical trials are not recommended for your species. The mortality rate would be unacceptable." "What physical trials?" Marcus asked. Vex. Ein paused. Something flickered in those black eyes. "There are several. Combat assessments, survival scenarios, and the stamina trail." "Tell me about the stamina trail." For a moment, Vexen said nothing. Then it leaned back in its chair. "The stamina trail is a 200-kilometer endurance course through the most dangerous terrain on this planet. It crosses acidic marshlands, obsidian ridges that cut through most known materials, extreme temperature zones, and ends at a mountain summit where the air is too thin for most species to breathe. It has a 23% mortality rate among the species that attempt it." Marcus nodded slowly. "And who attempts it?" "The prestige species. The Kalori, who live for 800 years and can regenerate lost limbs. The Vreth, silicon-based giants who feel no pain. The Narathi, whose 3 hearts can sustain them through conditions that would kill others. It is a rite of passage for them, a test of their superiority." Vexen's tone was flat, but Marcus thought he detected something like irony. "It is not for humans." That evening, Marcus met his roommate. Sathan was a Kalori, tall and slender with skin the color of pale jade. His eyes were golden, and his movements were graceful in a way that made Marcus feel clumsy just by comparison. He would live for centuries. He could lose an arm and grow it back in a week. By every galactic standard, he was Marcus's superior in every way. But Sathan was kind. He helped Marcus understand how to use the room's strange technology. He explained the Academy's customs and warned him about which species to avoid. And when Marcus asked about the stamina trail, Sathan's golden eyes filled with something that looked like concern. "You should not think about the trail," Sathan said gently. "It would kill you within the first 20 kilometers. Perhaps the first 10. There is no shame in knowing your limits, Marcus. That is wisdom, not weakness." Marcus sat on his bed, which was too firm and shaped for a different body. He looked out the window at the distant mountains, where the trail ended. The peaks were shrouded in clouds, and even from here, he could feel the cold radiating from them. "Have you done it?" he asked. "The trail?" Sathan nodded. "Last year. It took me 9 days. I nearly died twice. My left arm was dissolved by the acid marshes, and I had to wait for it to regenerate before I could continue climbing. I finished in the top third of my group." There was pride in his voice, but also memory of pain. "It was the hardest thing I have ever done." 9 days, Marcus repeated. "The fastest time ever recorded was 6 days, by a Vreth commander. Most who finish take between 8 and 12. Those who go faster usually die trying." Sathan sat down across from Marcus. "Why, you ask about this? Surely you understand that it is not possible for your species." Marcus was quiet for a long time. He thought about Earth. He thought about his grandfather, who had run marathons until he was 70 years old. He thought about the first humans, who had chased animals across the African savanna for days until their prey collapsed from exhaustion. He thought about what it meant to be human, and how the galaxy had already decided that it meant nothing. "I want to see it," he said finally. "The trail. I want to see where it starts." Sathan stared at him. "Why?" Marcus smiled. It was not a happy smile, but it was not a sad one either. It was the smile of someone who had made a decision. "Because everyone keeps telling me I can't. And I've never been very good at listening to that." The next morning, before the sun rose, Marcus Cole walked to the edge of the Academy grounds, where the stamina trail began. He stood at the starting line, looking out at the path that wound through poison and stone and ice and thin air. 200 kilometers of death. He took a deep breath of the alien air dot, and he started walking. The first 7 kilometers nearly killed him. Marcus had thought he was prepared. He had run marathons on Earth. He had trained in mountains and deserts. He had pushed his body to limits that most humans never reached. But the stamina trail was something different. It was not designed for training. It was designed to break the strongest beings in the galaxy. The path started gently enough, winding through rocky terrain that reminded him of Arizona. But within the first kilometer, the rocks became sharp as glass. His boots, standard Academy issue, were not made for human feet. By kilometer 3, he was bleeding. By kilometer 5, the air began to change. It grew thick and wet, carrying a smell like burning plastic. The acid marshes were ahead. He did not enter them. He was not stupid, but even the edge of the marshlands was enough to make his eyes water and his throat burn. He turned back at kilometer 7. His lungs screaming, his legs shaking, his mind telling him that everyone was right. This was not for him. This was not for humans. He collapsed at the starting line, gasping for air that tasted wrong. A shadow fell over him. "You are the human." Marcus looked up. The creature standing above him was massive, easily 3 meters tall, with gray skin that looked like cracked stone. Its eyes were deep red, and its voice rumbled like distant thunder. A Vreth, one of the strongest species in the known galaxy. "I'm the human," Marcus confirmed, still trying to catch his breath. "I am Trail Master Vorix. I oversee all official attempts at the stamina." Trail, The Vreth looked down at him with an expression that might have been disgust or might have been pity. It was hard to tell. "What were you doing out there?" "Running," Marcus said. "Training." Vorax was silent for a long moment. Then he made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Training? On the stamina trail?" He shook his massive head. "Go back to your dormitory, human. This path was not designed for your kind. You would be dead weight. Literally, once we retrieve your corpse." Marcus pushed himself to his feet. His legs screamed in protest, but he stood anyway. He was much smaller than the Vreth, barely reaching its chest. But he looked up into those red eyes without flinching. "I'm not trying to compete," he said. "Not yet. I just want to train on it. Run sections of it. Every day." Vorax stared at him. The silence stretched on for what felt like minutes. Then the Vreth turned and walked away without another word. Word spread quickly. By that evening, everyone in the academy knew what the human had done. The reactions were mixed. Most cadets laughed. A mortal species, using the deadliest endurance course in the sector as a jogging route. It was absurd. It was insulting. It was the funniest thing some of them had heard in years. Others were angry. The stamina trail was sacred to some species. It was a test of worth, a proof of superiority. For a Tier 9 creature to treat it as casual exercise was disrespectful. A few were curious. They did not laugh or complain. They just watched and waited to see what would happen next. The next morning, Marcus returned to the trail. He made it to kilometer 8 before his body gave out. The morning after that, he reached kilometer 9. Each day, he pushed a little further. Each day, he came back broken, bleeding, and exhausted. Each night, he ate more food than Sathan had ever seen a single being consume, and then he slept like the dead. "I do not understand," Sathan said one evening, watching Marcus bandage a deep cut on his arm. The obsidian ridges had claimed another piece of his skin. "Why do you do this to yourself? You are not proving anything. You are just hurting yourself for no reason." Marcus wrapped the bandage tight and flexed his fingers to test the movement. The pain was sharp, but he could still use his hand. "Good enough. I'm proving something to myself," he said. "What?" Marcus looked at his roommate. Sathan was genuinely confused. He had lived for 40 years and would live for 800 more. He had all the time in the universe to achieve his goals. He could not understand what it meant to have only a few decades, to know that every day mattered because there were so few of them. "Where I come from," Marcus said slowly, "we have a saying. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It's not just words. It's literally true for humans. When I run until my muscles tear, they heal back stronger. When my bones break under stress, they grow back denser. When I push past the point where my body tells me to stop, my body learns to go further next time." Sathan's golden eyes widened. "That sounds like a curse. Maybe it is." Marcus shrugged. "But it's also a gift. I can't regenerate like you. I can't live for centuries. But I can suffer today so that tomorrow I am more than I was yesterday. That's what humans do. That's what we've always done." Weeks passed. Marcus extended his range. 15 kilometers. 20. 30. The acid marshes still burned his skin, but he learned to wrap himself in protective gear improvised from academy supplies. The obsidian ridges still cut him, but he learned which paths were safest. The temperature extremes still pushed him to his limits, but his body was adapting, changing, becoming something more than it had been. The cadets stopped laughing. The instructors stopped dismissing him. Something was happening that their models had not predicted. The human was not dying. The human was not giving up. The human was getting stronger with every attempt, and no one could explain why. At kilometer 40, Marcus stood on a ridge overlooking the acid marshes he had crossed. His body ached in 100 places. His lungs burned with every breath. But he was smiling behind him. A long way back, he heard footsteps. He turned to see Sathan approaching, his jade skin flushed with exertion. "I wanted to see," Sathan said between breaths, "what was so special about this path." Marcus waited for him to catch up. The Kalori was struggling. He could regenerate, but he could not keep this pace for long. His body was not built for endurance. It was built for longevity. "What do you think?" Marcus asked. Sathan looked out at the harsh landscape, then back at the human who had crossed it. For the first time, there was something new in his golden eyes. Not pity, not confusion, respect. "I think," Sathan said slowly, "that I am beginning to understand why your ancestors were predators." Marcus laughed. It hurt his ribs, but he laughed anyway. "We weren't predators because we were strong," he said. "We were predators because we never stopped. Our prey could run faster than us, fight harder than us, but they couldn't run forever. Eventually, they got tired. Eventually, they collapsed. And we were still coming." He turned back to the path ahead. Kilometer 41 was waiting. We were always still coming. The morning of the Stamina Trail competition was cold and gray. Clouds covered both suns, and a harsh wind blew down from the mountains. 47 cadets stood at the starting line, representing 12 different species. They were the strongest, fastest, and most resilient beings the Academy had to offer, and one human. Marcus stood at the end of the line, stretching muscles that had been torn and rebuilt dozens of times over the past 4 months. He was the smallest competitor by far. The Vreth beside him was nearly 3 times his height. The Kalori on his other side could regenerate from wounds that would kill Marcus instantly. By every objective measure, he did not belong here, but he was here anyway. Trailmaster Vorix walked along the starting line, inspecting each competitor. When he reached Marcus, he stopped. Those deep red eyes studied the human for a long moment. "You have trained on every section of this trail," Vorix said quietly. "You know it better than most who stand here today. But knowing a path and surviving it are different things." "I know," Marcus said. "The competition rules offer no mercy. There are no medical stations, no rescue teams. If you fall, you stay where you fall. Do you understand?" "I understand." Vorix nodded slowly. Something that might have been respect flickered in his stone-like face. "Then I wish you fortune, human. You will need it." The signal came without warning. A deep horn sounded across the marshlands, and 47 beings surged forward. The first hour was chaos. The strongest competitors pushed to the front immediately, their powerful bodies carrying them across the rocky terrain with terrifying speed. A Vreth named Korath took the lead, his massive legs covering ground that would take Marcus 3 steps to cross. Behind him, a group of Kalori ran in perfect formation, their movements synchronized like a single organism. The Narathi, with their 3 hearts, pumped blood through their systems with mechanical efficiency. Marcus settled into the back of the pack and stayed there. He did not try to keep up. He knew he could not match their speed. But speed was not his weapon. His weapon was time. The acid marshes came at kilometer 15. The leaders slowed only slightly, their armored skin and regenerative abilities protecting them from the worst of the caustic air. Behind them, the first casualties began to fall. A young Tethran collapsed, her gills unable to filter the toxic fumes. 2 Kalori broke formation when one of them stumbled into a deep pool and began screaming as the acid ate through his leg. Marcus moved through the marshes carefully, following the path he had memorized over months of training. He knew which areas were safest. He knew where the acid was weakest. He lost time, but he lost no skin. by kilometer 50, the field had thinned. 31 competitors remained. Marcus was still in last place, but the gap was slowly closing. The leaders were starting to tire. The obsidian ridges began at kilometer 60. Black glass jutted from the ground like teeth, edges sharp enough to cut through metal. This was where Marcus had bled more than anywhere else during training. He knew every dangerous step, every hidden blade, every path that looked safe but would slice through boots and flesh alike. He watched a wraith stumble and fall, obsidian shards piercing his thick hide in a dozen places. The creature roared in pain and rage, but kept moving. Ahead, Anarathe was not so lucky. She fell badly, and the glass found her throat. She did not get up again. The temperature zones came next. First, heat that made the air shimmer and burn. Then cold so intense that frost formed on exposed skin within seconds. The competitors had to run through both, their bodies struggling to adapt to the rapid changes. Marcus kept his pace steady. He did not slow down in the heat or the cold. He had trained in both until his body no longer reacted with shock. He was not immune to the temperature changes. He simply no longer wasted energy fighting them. By kilometer 100, only 19 competitors remained. The wraith leader, Korath, was still in first place, but his massive strides had become shorter. His breath was coming harder. The endless distance was taking its toll on his powerful body. Marcus began to pass people. He passed the Tethron, who had collapsed against a rock, chest heaving, unable to continue. He passed 2 Kalori, who had stopped to regenerate injuries that were slowing them down. He passed Anarathe, whose 3 hearts were beating dangerously out of rhythm. He did not stop. He could not afford to stop. The mountain began at kilometer 150. The final challenge. 50 kilometers of climbing, with the air growing thinner with every step. Most species could not function at the summit. Their lungs were not designed for such low oxygen. Their blood could not carry what little air there was. Human blood was different. Human lungs were different. Not better, just different. Designed for a world where the air was thin and the heights were great. Marcus started climbing. Ahead of him, he could see Korath still leading. But the wraith was struggling now. His silicon-based body was strong, but it needed oxygen to fuel its muscles. With every 100 meters of altitude, there was less to breathe. His steps became slower. His movements became clumsy. At kilometer 180, Korath fell. The greatest wraith at the academy, the favorite to win, collapsed on the mountainside and could not rise. His lungs simply could not extract enough oxygen from the thin air. He lay there gasping as Marcus walked past him. Not ran, walked, because at this altitude, running was impossible. But walking was still possible. Moving was still possible, and Marcus was still moving. The final kilometers were the hardest of his life. His vision blurred. His thoughts became slow and confused. Every breath felt like breathing through a wet cloth. His body was shutting down, piece by piece, system by system, but his legs kept moving. One step, another step, another. He passed 2 more competitors who had collapsed on the trail. He did not stop to help them. He could not. If he stopped, he would not start again. The finish line appeared through the clouds. 2 figures had already crossed it. A Kalori named Sethin, a Anarathe named Vaughn. They were the only ones who had beaten the mountain. Marcus crossed the line in 3rd place. He took 3 more steps on pure momentum, and then his legs finally gave out. He fell forward onto the cold stone of the summit, his body completely spent. There was nothing left. He had given everything he had, and then given more. But he had finished. Through the fog of exhaustion, he heard voices, saw shapes moving around him, felt hands lifting him, carrying him somewhere warm, and then he heard Sethin's voice. the Kalori who had taken first place. The words came through clearly, despite his fading consciousness. He should not have been able to do that. No one should have been able to do that. He is not built for this. His body is not designed for this. A pause. What is he? Marcus tried to smile, but he could not feel his face anymore. The answer was simple. He was human, and humans never stopped. Marcus woke up in the medical wing of the academy. The lights were dim, and strange machines hummed softly around him. He tried to move, but his body refused to respond. Every muscle felt like it had been replaced with lead. Afia. Narathi doctor appeared beside his bed. Dr. Thessaly. He recognized her from the test she had run on him weeks ago. "You have been unconscious for 2 days," she said. Her voice was calm, but there was something in her eyes that he could not identify. Wonder, maybe. Or fear. "We were not certain you would wake up." Marcus tried to speak, but his throat was too dry. She handed him a container of water, and he drank until it was empty. "How bad is it?" he finally asked. Thessaly looked at her datapad for a long moment before answering. "You have sustained damage to nearly every system in your body. Micro tears in 90% of your muscle tissue. Stress fractures in your legs and feet. Damage to your lungs from the thin air. Severe dehydration. Extreme caloric depletion. Your heart showed signs of strain that would have killed most species." She set down the pad and looked at him directly. "By all medical standards, you should be dead. The amount of damage you sustained should have been fatal 10 times over. But the damage is spread across so many different systems that no single injury was enough to kill you." She paused. "It is as if your body was designed to distribute punishment, to take damage everywhere so that nothing is damaged enough to fail completely." Marcus laughed. It hurt, but he laughed anyway. "That's exactly what we're designed for. We evolved to run until our prey collapsed. Sometimes that took days. Our bodies learned to keep going no matter what, as long as we were still alive enough to keep moving." Thessaly stared at him for a long moment. Then she shook her head slowly. "I have been a doctor for 200 years. I thought I understood biology. I thought I understood the limits of living things. You have shown me that I understood nothing." She left him to rest, but Marcus could not sleep. His mind kept returning to the mountain, to the thin air, to the feeling of his body shutting down piece by piece while his legs kept moving. He remembered passing Korath, the greatest Reth athlete, collapsed on the trail. He remembered the looks on the faces of the other competitors when he crossed the finish line. They had not looked at him with pity anymore. They had looked at him with something else entirely. 3 weeks later, when he could finally walk again, Marcus was summoned to Administrator Vexen's office. The silver-skinned creature sat behind its desk, 4 arms folded, black eyes unreadable. "I have received communication from the Galactic Council regarding your species," Vexen said without greeting. "Your performance in the stamina trail has caused significant discussion at the highest levels." Marcus sat carefully in the too large chair. His body was still healing, still rebuilding itself into something stronger than before. What kind of discussion? The kind that changes classifications. Vexen activated a holographic display. Marcus saw Earth rotating slowly, surrounded by data points and classification markers. "When your species was discovered, we designated you as Tier 9, the lowest category for sentient beings, short-lived, fragile, unremarkable." The display changed. New markers appeared. New categories. "That designation has been revised." Marcus looked at the new classification. The words did not fully translate, but his device tried its best. "Persistence Class Apex," he read slowly. "What does that mean?" "It means we no longer know what you are." Vexen's voice was flat, but Marcus thought he detected something underneath. "Unease, perhaps." It means you have been placed in a special category that did not exist until this week. It means that every military strategist in the galaxy is currently revising their assessment of humanity. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Because I finished a race? Because you finished a race that should have killed you. Because you trained on a course that kills 23% of the strongest species in the galaxy, and you used it as exercise. Because you demonstrated that humans do not fight like other species. Vexen leaned forward. Other species fight until they are too damaged to continue. Humans fight until they win or die. There is no middle state for your kind. No surrender. No retreat. Only victory or death. The administrator paused, and when it spoke again, its voice was quieter. That makes you very dangerous. Marcus returned to his room that evening. Sathan was waiting for him. The Kalori had changed over the past months. When they first met, he had looked at Marcus with polite concern, the way someone might look at a sick child. Now he looked at Marcus with something more complex. Respect mixed with uncertainty. Admiration mixed with wariness. The entire academy is talking about you, Sathan said. About what you did. About what it means. What do they think it means? Sathan was quiet for a long moment. Then he clasped Marcus's arm in the traditional Kalori gesture of farewell between equals. His grip was strong, and his golden eyes were serious. I have lived 40 years and will live 800 more, he said slowly. I have seen many things. I have met many species. But I have never met anyone who frightened me as much as you do. Marcus frowned. Frightened? Not because of what you can do. Sathan shook his head. Because of what you are willing to endure to do it. Pain that would stop others means nothing to you. Damage that would kill others only makes you stronger. You are not more powerful than us, Marcus. You are simply more willing to suffer. He released Marcus's arm and stepped back. That is terrifying. 1 year later, a new human arrived at the Galactic Integration Academy. Her name was Elena Santos, and she was 22 years old. She stepped off the shuttle with wide eyes and a nervous smile, looking up at the glass towers of the academy with wonder and fear. She was the second human to ever walk through its gates. The other cadets watched her arrive. They did not laugh. They did not whisper about fragile mortals and short lifespans. They stood in silence, studying this new creature from the death world called Earth. A Vreth instructor approached her. His name was Vorix, and he had watched the first human train on the stamina trail for months before finally understanding what humans were. You are the new human representative, he said. It was not a question. Yes, sir. Elena's voice was steady, but Marcus could see the tension in her shoulders. She was nervous, unsure, overwhelmed by the alien world around her. Vorix did not suggest she focus on the academic tracks. He did not tell her that the physical trials were not for her species. Instead, he pointed toward the distant mountains where the clouds covered the peaks. Your predecessor trained there, he said. Every day, no matter how much it hurt, no matter how many times he fell. He used our deadliest course as exercise. Elena looked at the mountains. Marcus could see her taking them in, understanding the challenge they represented, feeling the fear of the unknown. He finished the stamina trail in 3rd place, Vorix continued. First among all non-regenerating species. First among all beings with single hearts and mortal bodies. He proved that humans are not what we thought they were. Elena was quiet for a moment. Then she looked up at the massive Vreth instructor. Can you show me where the trail starts? Vorix's stone face shifted. It might have been a smile. It was hard to tell with his species. Would you like me to show you the path? Marcus watched from a distance as Elena walked toward the mountains with Vorix. She was smaller than him, younger than him. She did not know what waited for her on that trail. The acid marshes, the obsidian ridges, the cold that froze and the heat that burned, the thin air at the summit where every breath felt like drowning. But she was human. She would learn. She would suffer, and fall, and bleed, and rise again. She would push herself past limits that should have been absolute. She would teach the galaxy the same lesson he had taught them. Humans were not the fastest, not the strongest, not the most powerful, but they were the ones who kept coming. Long after others had stopped. Long after hope was gone. Long after survival should have been impossible. They were always still coming, and that made all the difference. Dr. Thessaly had studied alien biology for over 200 years. She was a Nerethi, a species known for their scientific minds and their 3 hearts that beat in perfect rhythm. In her long career, she had examined thousands of species from across the galaxy. She had seen creatures that could survive in the vacuum of space, beings that lived inside stars, organisms that existed partly in dimensions that most species could not perceive. But she had never seen anything like the human. "This is impossible," she said, staring at the data on her screens. "These readings must be wrong." Her assistant, a young Kalori named Veth, checked the instruments again. "They are correct, Doctor. I have verified them 3 times. Dr. Thessaly looked through the observation window. In the room below, Marcus Cole was running on a testing platform. Sensors covered his body, measuring everything from his heart rate to his brain activity. He'd been running for 4 hours without stopping. "His muscle tissue is actively repairing itself," Thessaly said, her voice filled with disbelief. "Not like Kalori regeneration. Something different. The fibers are tearing under stress and immediately being rebuilt with denser, stronger material. His body is using the damage to improve itself." "That should not be possible," Beth said. "Damage is damage. It weakens organisms. It does not strengthen them. Apparently, no one told the humans that." She pulled up more data. Marcus's cardiovascular system was equally strange. His single heart was pumping blood with an efficiency that increased the longer he ran. His breathing had settled into a pattern that seemed almost mechanical in its regularity. And there was something else, something in his brain chemistry that she could not fully explain. "He should have stopped an hour ago," she said. "His pain receptors are firing at maximum capacity. Any other species would have collapsed from the neural overload. But look at this." She pointed to a specific reading. "He is consciously overriding the pain signals. His brain is acknowledging the pain and then choosing to ignore it." Veth stared at the data. "That is not ignoring. That is suppression. Active suppression. He's feeling every bit of the pain. He is simply refusing to respond to it." Yes, Thessaly's 3 hearts beat a little faster. That is exactly what he is doing. She had requested this study after hearing the rumors about the human cadet. At first, she had dismissed them as exaggeration. A Tier 9 species training on the stamina trail? Absurd. Impossible. Probably dangerous misinformation spread by cadets who did not know better. But the rumors had continued. And they had grown. And finally, she had decided to see for herself. What she found had changed everything she thought she knew about biology. 1 week later, Dr. Thessaly stood before the Academy's senior faculty. The room was filled with instructors and administrators from dozens of species. Trailmaster Vorix was there, his stone-like face unreadable. Administrator Vexen sat in the corner, its forearms folded with impatience. And in the front row, watching with obvious interest, was High Commander Kethis of the Vreth Military Council. "Thank you all for coming," Thessaly began. "I have asked for this meeting because I believe we have made a serious error in our classification of the human species." Murmurs rippled through the room. Vexen leaned forward. "Explain." Thessaly activated her presentation. Images of Marcus appeared on the screen, along with charts and graphs showing his physical changes over the past months. When humans were first discovered, we classified them as Tier 9 based on standard metrics. Short lifespan, no natural weapons, no regeneration, no obvious biological advantages. They come from a death world, but they seem to have no adaptations that made them remarkable. She paused. We were wrong. She showed them the data from her studies. The muscle growth, the bone density increases, the cardiovascular optimization, the pain suppression. And then she showed them something that made the room fall silent. This is a comparison of the human cadet's physical capabilities when he arrived at the academy and his capabilities now. 3 months later, the numbers on the screen were dramatic. His endurance has increased by 47%. His strength has increased by 23%. His recovery time from injury has decreased by 60%. All of this happened because he has been deliberately damaging his body through extreme training. High Commander Kethis spoke for the first time. His voice was deep and cold. You are saying the human becomes stronger when injured? Not exactly. I am saying the human uses injury as a tool for improvement. When his muscles tear, they rebuild stronger. When his bones stress, they grow denser. When he pushes past exhaustion, his body learns to delay exhaustion further. This is not healing. This is adaptation. Forced, deliberate, aggressive adaptation. She pulled up one final image. It was a graph showing the hunting patterns of ancient Earth predators. On their home world, humans were not the fastest predators. They were not the strongest. They had no claws, no fangs, no armor. But they had two things that nothing else had. The ability to cool their bodies through liquid secretion, which allowed them to run in heat that would kill other creatures, and the ability to keep moving long after any sane organism would stop. The room was completely silent now. They hunted by following their prey for days. Not hours, days. They would chase an animal until it collapsed from exhaustion, until its body simply could not continue. The prey was always faster, always stronger, but it could not run forever. Thessaly looked around the room at the assembled faculty. Nothing can run forever. Except, apparently, humans. Varix finally spoke. His rumbling voice filled the chamber. I have watched a human train for 3 months. I have seen him collapse and rise again more times than I can count. I thought he was foolish, perhaps insane, but he keeps coming back. Every day, he returns to the trail. Every day, he goes a little further. The Vreth shook his massive head. I have trained soldiers from 30 species. I have never seen anything like this. Dr. Thessaly nodded. That is because there is nothing like this. We classified humans as Tier 9 because they die easily and live briefly. But we failed to account for what they can endure while alive. They are not fragile. They are not weak. They are something we do not have a category for. Administrator Vexen's black eyes narrowed. What would you suggest? Thessaly considered the question carefully. She thought about the human in her laboratory, running until his heart should have burst. She thought about his smile when she told him he could stop, and his simple answer, not yet. I suggest, she said slowly, that we stop thinking of humans as prey. Because they are not. They never were. She looked directly at High Commander Kethis. They are the thing that keeps coming. No matter how far you run, no matter how fast, they are the thing that never stops. The room was silent for a long time. Finally, Kethis stood. He was the largest being in the room, a Vreth who had commanded armies and conquered worlds. He looked at the image of Marcus Cole on the screen, this small, soft creature from a backwater death world. Interesting, he said, and then he left without another word. But Thessaly saw his face as he walked out. She had studied alien biology for 200 years. She knew fear when she saw it. The High Commander of the Wreth Military Council was afraid of a single human. She wondered what would happen when there were more.